Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hariva.
What's up, Mark? It's been a while since I talked to you like a human being. I guess you're busy and you. That one? Yeah, I guess that is. Better? I don't know. This might be better for our. This is what we use. What the question is. Hare Krishna. Hi. Good. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. Yes. So before we begin, Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmiditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I may need a little water, if it's possible. So, I hope you can see that. I know I forgot that we couldn't make it dark. Maybe we could turn these off too? That would help. Yeah, that's better. So, this theme for this gathering, this retreat, is hearing and chanting and remembering. These three basic processes of devotional service. And some time ago, I think I shared this with you last year, I discovered at the end of the Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, in the 12th chapter, there are 8 verses spoken by Srila Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya that are all about the glories of Krishna Katha. And it's exactly according to our theme. He talks about hearing and chanting, and the last verse is all about remembrance. The last 2 verses describe how this hearing and chanting leads to constant remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet. And within these, as we'll see, within these 8 verses, there's 3 parts to this. Today we'll deal with the first 3 verses. He quotes 3 very important verses. Thank you. Hey, you can put it on here. I'll be sitting. Thanks. From the instructions of Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva concerning the inspiring him to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. We just heard this morning the result of that instruction, how he sat in trance to meditate on the pastimes of the Lord. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranahite amale. These verses and the few that follow are quoted as we learned extensively in the Sandarbhas. So previous to that, in the previous chapter, there's some verses that Srila Prabhupada would quote very often. And 3 of those verses are repeated here in this Krishna Katastaka. Whenever you find in the Srimad Bhagavatam that a verse is repeated, you know this is a very significant verse. I forget if I mentioned last year that there's one verse that appears 5 times in the Bhagavatam. And I'll share that with you during the course of our retreat here. But these verses, one of which Prabhupada puts in his preface, Tad Bhagavasargo Janataga Viplavo, how the words of the Bhagavatam and those following the Bhagavatam that glorify Krishna are meant to bring about a revolution in this world's misdirected civilization. And the revolution always begins in the consciousness. So we'll hear about all of that. But right now, I think we'll begin with the first verse. And it's wonderful, the first verse begins with Sankirtan. So I'll chant, you chant, and then we'll discuss this verse. Sankirtyamano Bhagavan Ananta Shrutanubhavo Vyasanam Hipungsam Bhavishya Chittam Vidunotya Shesham Yatatamoko Brahmivati Vataha. When people properly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead or simply hear about His power, the Lord personally enters their hearts and cleanses away every trace of misfortune, just as the sun removes the darkness or as a powerful wind drives away the clouds. Now you can see I have a little illustration there, the sunrise coming up, right? And Vishwanath Chakravarti explains in his commentary, which is quoted in our little purport that Ridhyananda Maharaj wrote, that one may say that when the sun arises, that the darkness is diminished. But suppose there's a big cloud covering. There's still some darkness there. So that therefore he gives the second analogy, that the powerful wind will blow away the clouds. So in every respect, Krishna Katha, when properly heard and chanted, heard from the right source, and heard in the right attitude and chanted, will definitely cleanse away the ignorance in one's heart. So, sorry. Okay. Oops, I didn't want to do that. So let's explore this verse. So, since hearing about Krishna is supremely important, getting a taste for that hearing is the most important thing. And if you recall, in the very second chapter of the whole Bhagavatam, this topic comes up. When Sutta Goswami is answering the question of the sages, what is that supreme dharma by which the soul can be truly satisfied? He begins with a discussion. He said the supreme dharma, thank you, is that which will awaken pure bhakti, which has to be uninterrupted and unmotivated to fully satisfy the self. And eventually he gets to the point of describing that one, as he said, Tasmad ekena manasa bhagavan sattvatam pati shotavya kirtidabdasya jayak pujasti nityada. That no matter what section of Varna ashram you're in, all of the duties must be focused on pleasing Lord Hari. Then it's successful. Samsiddhi haritoshanam. And therefore, he says, one who is intelligent will, with one pointed intelligence and one mind, hear about, chant about, remember and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by doing that, one gets the sword of remembrance. These are verses that we should be familiar with. Yadanudyasena yukta karma grantina bandhanam. Anudyasena means the sword, literally the sword of remembrance of Krishna, gained by hearing and chanting and worshiping. And by doing that, karma grantina bandhanam, one can cut off all of the bonds of attachment and karma that we're keeping us bound to this material world. So, in order to get that sort of remembrance, one must hear and chant. But where are you going to get the taste to hear and chant? And that's this verse. To get the taste, to get the desire to hear and chant. In other words, to break through the cloud of illusion, which is keeping us absorbed in all kinds of mundane topics, here's the formula. Shushusho shadadanasa vasuteva kataruchi syan mahatsevya vipra punyatirtha shevana. He's saying that in order to get the Vasudeva Kataruchi, which means the taste for hearing about Krishna or Vasudeva, then with ardent attention. Now this word Shushusho is so important. Right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, second verse, we hear this, we'll discuss that. It talks about how one has to hear the Bhagavatam with submissive all reception. And then Krishna will be manifest in the heart. So what that word Shushusho means, of course, with great faith and with hearing with great attention and taking the knowledge in and then acting on it. So this word Shushusho means also the service attitude. And who should one hear? The great devotees. One should serve the great devotees. Vasudeva, Syan Mahatseveya. It arises from serving the Mahatmas. It takes place. What takes place? Getting the taste for hearing. Vipra Punya Tirthana Shevanat, who are themselves places of pilgrimage. So this service attitude has to be there. And as Prabhupada says in his purport, just a summary of the meaning of the verse, when one sincerely serves a pure devotee, Krishna is most pleased and bestows a taste for hearing about him upon the servant. This is from the purport to that verse. This eagerness to hear clears the devotee's path back to Godhead, as Prabhupada says in the purport. The eagerness to hear about God is the first qualification of a devotee eligible for entering the kingdom of God. And so, now proceeding there, we'll find, let's see. Okay, sorry about this. So now, this is a very important point. The eagerness to hear about Krishna is also fostered by giving up hearing mundane vibrations. Thus the second verse in the Krishna Katastaka. So the point is that as in everything in bhakti, in our sadhana bhakti, there's the do's and there's the don'ts. Right? Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. This is the first two elements of surrender. To accept those things favorable for devotional service and reject those things unfavorable. So along with associating with great Mahatmas, listening to them, serve them, one has to also wean oneself away from bad association. And that's the reason for the ashrams and the temples. To give us a chance to powerfully associate with devotees and at the same time lose the taste for other kinds of association. And in this Krishna Katastaka, he goes back and forth. He glorifies hearing about Krishna, and then he'll condemn the Gramya Kata. We call it Gramya Kata, means materialistic vibrations. So that brings us to this second verse here. Oh, 1 second here. Okay. Mishagirasta yasatira satkata nakatyate yad bhagavanad hokshajaha tadeva satyam taduhaiva mangalam tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodayam. Words that do not describe the transcendental personality of Godhead, but instead deal with temporary matters, are simply false and useless. Only those words that manifest the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord are actually truthful, auspicious, and pious. So here he's contrasted. In the first verse, he gives an explanation of the great benefit one will attain by hearing Krishna Katha. You become purified. The Lord himself enters into the heart. He's already there, but he manifests. We can perceive his action. Just as we learned in the second chapter. You see how the whole Bhagavatam is like consistent throughout in this regard. And Krishna cleanses away. He personally cleanses away all of the abhadras, all of the inauspicious things. On the other hand, material vibration does just the opposite. It puts us into the modes of nature, it makes us forget Krishna, and it keeps us bound to this material world. So therefore he says they're simply false and useless. And so I wanted to share some other verses with you. Let's see. Okay. Well, okay, we'll get to them in a minute. So now the next point. So this is the theme throughout the Bhagavatam, condemning hearing mundane sounds and praising hearing about Krishna. So now, to recall that the Bhagavatam itself is itself the highest form of Krishna Katha. So we've just heard the whole Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami has spoken it to Parikshit. Sutta Goswami has recited it to all the sages. So they've had a tremendous experience. Parikshit Maharaj has had a tremendous experience of the power of Krishna Katha, how it's lifted him completely out of the mundane platform. He's not at all afraid of the snake bird, right? And he says, at one point, this famous verse, I don't know the Sanskrit, I forget it, how I'm not at all afraid of this snake. Let it bite me at once, but all you simply go on chanting. He's encouraging Shukadeva, simply go on chanting about Krishna. So this actually gives us this fearlessness. Fear is inherent in the materialistic demeanor, in the materialistic consciousness, because on the bodily platform you're always threatened by so many things, by so many difficulties, not the least of which is death. So that fear is underlying, and that can only be conquered and transcended by becoming fully Krishna conscious. And the best way to do that, in fact, the only way to do that, especially in this age, is by absorbing oneself in transcendental sound vibration, beginning with the holy name, the chanting of the holy name. So now back to the second canto. This is the part where Shukadeva Goswami is answering Parikshit's first question. What should one hear about? What should one think about at the time of death? And so the first thing is that Shukadeva praises the question. This is also a very important point. That when the proper questions are asked, then the Mahatmas, the Gurus, they become very enlivened, because it shows that the interest is there. And that oftentimes they'll praise the questioner for that. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak about Krishna. So he praises the question. He says this question is the supreme question, asked. And then he starts condemning other sound vibrations. Now this is another very famous verse. Shota vyadini rajendra ninang santi sahasracha apashyatam atma tattvam griheshu grihamedinam. So those who are simply absorbed in materialistic household life and everything that it entails, they have millions, he says thousands here, but it's unlimited, millions of subject matters for hearing and chanting. And these millions of subject matters keep them immersed in ignorance. So their basic activity is, during the day working very hard, making money, right? Nidriya, and at night sleeping, or sleeping too much, or having sex. And if, on the weekends, shopping. Kutumba Badanenava. It says maintaining the family, going out. The Prabhupada uses that phrase in one class. I heard him say that. So isn't that basically what's going on? And what about all of the dangers? Oh, they think that, my body is very strong. I have my insurance policies, right? I have there's a police and there's a defense system that are going to save me. And I have my wife and I have my bank accounts and all of these things. But these are all called fallible soldiers. Asatsu api, And even though seeing, now this brings it back to that theme of seeing we heard this morning about how by purification of the consciousness, one's vision changes to the point that one can progressively see Krishna, right? Krishna progressively reveals himself to us. According to the cleanse, the depth of the cleansing that's taking place by hearing and chanting. That's exactly the verse we heard that we studied today. That was the first verse that Maharaj shared with us. So, conversely, by simply hearing and chanting and repeating and reading and absorbing oneself in mundane vibrations, one loses one's vision. And so, therefore, Shukadev says at the beginning, although they see, Pashyan na pashyati, tesham pramatto nidanam, such mad people, intoxicated people, intoxicated with material thoughts and desires and everything that goes into the modes of nature. Tesham pramatto nidanam, pashyan, although they've seen, who could not see that such fallible soldiers are really fallible? We've seen your father has died or your grandfather has died throughout history. Even the great empires have been swept away by the winds of time. And everybody eventually dies, But although seeing you don't see, even as plain as day, there's no secure place in this material world. But having cut themselves off from the transcendence and from the reality, the human mind cannot face that reality that really everything I'm putting my energy into has no meaning and has no sustenance. And therefore, everyone is in denial. In order to live in this world and engage in all these material activities, one must be in denial of the reality. And so he says, Pashyanapina pashyati. Although seeing, they don't see. The vision is covered, is clouded. So, what is the solution? So he says, and we have this verse here. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavyak Kititasya Smartavyas Chechitabayam. We're back to hearing, chanting, and remembering. Therefore, O Bharata, he's addressing Purika, that's the scion or descendant of King Bharat. One should always hear about, chant about, and remember. And he has 4 different designations of Krishna in this one verse. Sarvatma, the Supreme Soul, Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the Supreme Controller, and Hari, he who takes away everything inauspicious. If you want fearlessness, for those who want Ichita Abhayam, for those who want fearlessness. Because what is the result of all this? First of all, you lose your fear. But then at the end, here's another famous verse. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Abhyam. Whether you're performing Sankhya yoga or you're in your own Swadharma, in the Svarnashram system, the success of your birth will be if you can remember Krishna at the end of life. So we're back to remembrance. That is the ultimate goal. Now in the previous purport, Prabhupada speaks on this subject of hearing, chanting, remembering. I'll just read this. This is not on the board. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds. And thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. This is what we're talking about here. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. Now this speaks to the inconceivable nature of pure sound vibration that is directly representing the Lord, such as the holy name descriptions from Bhagavatam. This idea that, abhinat varnama namino, that the name is not separate from that which is named. The name of God, the name of Krishna, is Krishna. And so when we chant, especially chant purely and sincerely, then we can experience Krishna's presence in the name. And that's actually how this movement is going on, and how it began, and how it is flourishing. Because that direct experience is there. Even though we're not pure devotees, still the power of the holy name is so great that that Krishna from within, he's purifying us. He enters into Krishna enters into the mind and consciousness through the ears. And there's another explanation of that here. So that, Prabhupada had this faith. This is why he came. He had this full faith in Krishna Katha, beginning with the holy name. He had full faith that even the fallen souls, such as ourselves, completely outside of the Vedic culture. Certainly I speak for myself in this regard. Kirata, Hunanda, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhirasham. There's a list. Shukadeva Goswami himself, he has the prayers in the second canto. The outliers, these who have no touch with the Vedic culture, others who are completely condemned materially, still they can also be purified by contact with the sound vibration vibrated by the lips of the pure devotee. So Prabhupada had great faith in that, and that's why he came to America. And he proved it. All corners of the world, doesn't matter, the darkest corners of Africa. I was just reading about Madhu Mangal, and Madhu Mangal Das? He's kind of famous in Africa. He came to San Diego. He's a book distributor. At one point in his life, he was living on the street, dumpster diving in South Africa. And he became a devotee. He was initiated Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He's a white body, and but he's an absolute, he's addicted to book distribution. Can't not go out. I remember when he was in San Diego, he would go out alone, take the bus up to North County, and he would meet people, and he would start talking to them. Why are you so sad? Your good fortune has just arrived. And he would give them a book, and then eventually would hug them. He would give them a break. This is the man, of course. He'd give them a big hug and take a picture, and they would, they'd be blissful like this, And so the idea is that here is a person who has, fallen. I mean, even compared to ordinary people, he was like in trouble. But he came in touch with pure vibration, with the Krishna consciousness. And now he himself is an agent for distributing books, all over Africa. He told me this hair-raising story, I won't tell you right now, about Congo. He went into the Congo. And they almost executed him. They thought he was a spy, like that. And he somehow appealed and he got out, obviously. So this is the power of this of the sound vibration. So Prabhupada is saying here, this is the same section at the second verse. He talks about, people who are simply addicted to material sound vibration. The process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord and His name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Foolish people do not know this. They want to hear something about the name, form, etc., of everything temporary, and they do not know how to utilize this propensity of hearing for the ultimate good. So this is Lord Chaitanya's mission, to somehow inject in their hearts, at least the opportunity to hear pure sound vibration. That's what book distribution is all about. Books are nothing but concentrated sound. They began in Prabhupada mostly speaking into a dictaphone. It's all the same idea. And Harinams or the temples are meant for places, quote from Prabhupada, to foster hearing and chanting about Krishna. There's not supposed to be any other vibration. You come into a sanctified place like this, it's all about Kishore Kishori, Gaura Nitai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. All of the activity, the sounds, the books, everything is meant for that. And so it's immediately uplifting. The temples are very, very important. Otherwise, we're easy prey for Maya. It's just sitting in our homes alone. So coming together is so important. So, let's see, back to... Forgive me, I'm just... Okay. So in the second canto, in the first canto, and the second canto throughout, you have the same theme of somehow or other come into the orbit, into the service of pure devotees, get the taste for hearing and chanting, and then cultivate that as intensely as you can to the point of remembrance. So we're going to talk about that later. Okay, so now, let's see. Now we have a little poetic interlude, and I thought I'd share with you, because in this particular poem, this theme is also entered. So some of you have heard this one before, but the fall and redemption of the soul. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds, with pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoid of piety, he suffers in anxiety, till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. And we're going to discuss some of this. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. So, it has a kind of an unusual format. But the basic principle is there. We'll go back to this key element here, if I can. Batteries are running. So, the key element is the contact with God's devotee, as we say. The real pronunciation is devotee. And awakening affinity for words of the divinity. So each of us has had that experience. We've come in contact with the Lord's devotee, perhaps, through the medium of a book, getting from a devotee a book. And that's the greatest contact. There's Srila Prabhupada. The sound vibration is there in the book, waiting to enter our heart if we simply open it and open our minds. So somehow or other, that contact is there, and the faith is awakened. Now, cultivating that faith and that eagerness to hear is like synonymous with our advancement in devotional service. And it comes through service. It comes through sadhana bhakti. When you think about it, so much of sadhana bhakti, just think about the Upadeshamrita for a minute. We learn first of all about who to approach. The first verse is all about the guru, really. When you find someone who is completely controlled, vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, all of the urges, the subtle urges of the mind, the words, anger, the grosser urges of the body, if those are completely under control, then here's a person who must be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. This is a summary verse, but this is the basic measure. So now, if we take up the process, now the first instruction is what not to do, right? Achahara payasascha bhajalpo niyamagraha. Here's what impedes your devotional service. Too much collecting, too much eating, overeating, strong endeavor for material things, nonsense talk. Right there, it's listed. Again, exposing our minds to material sound vibrations. And then niyamagraha. Now this is all talking about the Vaidhi Bhakti, the devotional service according to rules and regulations. Having come in contact with someone who we can trust, who we can see is at a higher level, who we can surrender to. Then there's the question of overcoming our material tendencies, to deviate from the program that's been given up. So the niyamagraha means there are certain rules and regulations. All of it, ultimately, it is for fostering our attraction for Krishna, chiefly through sound vibration. So, if we just go through the motions, our mind is elsewhere. And we're going to talk about this again. how to improve the quality of our hearing. So if you're simply going through the motions, this is all niyamagraha. You may be there physically, but you're not there in spirit. Your heart isn't there. So that's also impedes devotional service. This will destroy a devotional service. Or, more obviously, you don't show up. You don't actually engage in the processes. This is also niyamagraha. Janasanga, association with non-devotees. What happens in association with non-devotees? You hear all kinds of Brahmikatha. Right? And that association can come through all kinds of media. When these books were written, if you're going to hear something, then you go somewhere and you hear from someone personally. But nowadays, through the miracle of science, the media, we have, there's obviously the internet, the phones, the TV, the radio, everything else, the MP3s. So there's all kinds of ways to associate with non-devotees, even if you may be physically sitting amongst devotees. Right? So that don't think you can cheat Krishna. He knows exactly who you're associating with and where your mind is. So Janasanga and Laulyam, material greed. We want spiritual greed. We want to be so greedy for Krishna Katha that we never want the kirtan to stop. Oh, I'm chanting my japa. It's 7 o'clock already. I'm just getting started. We have to feel like that. Prabhupada said, why just 16 rounds? Why not 16,000 rounds? At one point he said, 16 is always the minimum. But how to get that taste? That's the point. So it's simple ultimately. Diminishing the bad association and increasing the good association. And then he talks on the positive side, utsahana, right? You have to be enthusiastic. All in the matter of tattva karma pravartana, the regular principles of devotional service, which are purifying our consciousness so that the ultimate, fruit there's nothing material. The ultimate fruit is more and more attraction for Krishna in all of his forms. In the holy name, the service, the devotees, the deity, the prasadam, taking it really as spiritual food, all of that depreciation, that's the goal. It's nothing material. It's not some position in ISKCON, it's not some power, it's nothing like that. It's all this internal state. For our own personal sadhana. That's the idea. So he goes on, and then he talks about relationships with devotees. So important. Sharing one's mind, hearing confidentially, sharing prasadam, giving gifts, receiving gifts. He talks about different levels of devotees, how you relate to them. Right? One is if one simply chants Hare Krishna. You go out on the street and you say, good morning, Hare Krishna. If someone says Hare Krishna to you, their life has been transformed. You know that inside, right? You mentally offer your obeisances. Krishna iti yasigaditam manasadriyeta. That's what that line means. Krishna iti, one time. Then you mentally offer obeisances. Someone who's actually taken initiation, then you physically offer obeisances. And someone who is very realized in their bhajan and completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others, such a person you should hear from with shushusheo, again the shushusheo, hear with great attention, and submissive oral reception, and serve. So this is important, understanding how to relate to different devotees. And then there's a verse about, never judging a devotee by physical appearance. Age, color, I've seen young kids, develop, show such a great attraction for chanting. I said, I wish I had such attraction like that. This culture of kirtan is wonderful. What to speak of, anyone else. So we don't judge by the physical body. Now, after all of these verses, preliminary verses, what do we have? We have 2 verses that focus on hearing and chanting. This is the point. So it's a preliminary. You've come to this point. Now he gives the essence of advice in 2 verses. He says, Syat Krishna Nama Chadidadi Sitapya Vidya Pitto Pataptara Sanasya Narochikano Kindvadarat Anudinang Karusai Vajishta Swadri Kraman Bhavadi Tadgadamula Hantri. So he says, the holy name, form, qualities, pastimes of Krishna are sweet, the sweetest of the sweet. You ever heard that? There's so many verses. But now, why don't I taste it as so sweet? Yes, I chant Hare Krishna, but after a while my mind wanders, and eventually I may fall a little dazed and whatever. Just imagine, I assume everyone in this room has tasted a gulab jamun, I remember when I first tasted a gulab jamun, it was like, whoa, I didn't know anything could actually taste like that. It was such an experience, you know. And of course, you hear how there's glubjamit eating contests, you know, it's like, because you can keep eating them and they're so tasty. Of course, you may get sick, but the point is, if you could only taste those glubjamins forever, right? So now the holy name is sweeter than the sweet. We've heard it so many times. It's the sweetest, sweeter than glubjamin. So, and there's no limit, right, to chanting and hearing the holy name. The only limit is in our own consciousness. We don't taste it so sweet. And the explanation here is that because our consciousness is covered by the bile of ignorance, it's like we have a jaundice. You know, in jaundice, sweet things taste bitter. So it's because of the jaundice of ignorance, we're tasting this holy name as bitter, the holy name in pastimes. Maybe not bitter, but certainly not as sweeter than the sweetest. So what's the solution? So the solution is that in spite of that, and here's where the sadhana bhakti comes in, even though I may not want to hear and chant, I may not feel so attracted, I still do it. You know? Anudinam, every day, regularly. Nityam bhagavata sevaya. Every day, regulated. And we make a vow, especially initiation, certain minimum time. Then the sweetness returns. Or more precisely, our ability to experience the sweetness that's already there in the holy name returns. Not just holy name, qualities, pastimes, all the Krishna Katha. And then this 8th verse says, this is the essence of all advice. Tan nama rupa charitari sukirtananu smityo kramena rasanamana sindiyoja. Tishtan vajeta anuraga jinanugami kalang nayeda kilavichu sadha. So he's talking there about these, again, chanting and hearing the holy name. And in this way to engage the tongue and the mind. And to live in Braj. Okay, we may not live physically in Braj. We may not have that opportunity, and it's also not part of our mission here. Prabhupada wanted us to visit Braj, take pilgrimage, but then preach everywhere. And then when it comes time, then you can retire, to the Dham. This was his program. So anyway, but even internally, Prabhupada said when he came to America, I'm actually, I'm not actually here in New York City. May appear to be, but my heart is always thinking, is there with Krishna in Vrindavan. You carry within your heart. Wherever you are, there is Vrindavan, Advaita said to Lord Chaitanya. So the point is that the culmination of all of this Upadeshamrita is, to become absorbed in the name, form, qualities of Krishna. And then he goes on to describe, the glories of the Dham and so forth. But what's happening in the Dham? To become qualified to really live there, you have to be able to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness all the time. Otherwise, you can create havoc, by performing nonsense activities in the Dham. So I just wanted to point out that all of this leads to it. Here, the whole Bhagavatam has led to this instruction. Now, my little poem here is just an outline of the situation that we find ourselves in. Because of unwillingness to serve, or what do you say, causeless unwilling to serve, as Prabhupada said, turning away from Krishna. I was just reading about this in the Madhya Lila, 20th chapter, the instructions to Sanatan. We are by nature marginal energy. And so that means we can turn toward Krishna or we can turn away from Krishna. And we unfortunate souls, most of the souls never turn away from Krishna. But some do, and we're in that category. So because we're marginal, we have that tendency, and we've done that. But by good fortune, we come in contact with the truth and understand the necessity of turning back to Krishna and serving Krishna. Now, how do we get that truth? Through sound vibration. It all is coming through the sound. And so the Bhagavatam is giving the same knowledge. It all comes from the Bhagavatam. And it begins, with a statement, Janma Jasya Yaton. This is the topic. We're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He describes also Maya, how everything is, like a mirage, right? The earth looks like water and all of these different things. So it's a bewildering abode we've put ourselves into here, But the Bhagavatam is going to give you the real dharma, the way out of this morass. And the means, right at the end of the second verse, he says, Sadyo ridya varujyate tukatabi shushushabis tatshanat. There's that word shushushabi again. This Bhagavatam itself is the means. If you hear it with this submissive oral reception, very quickly, that the Lord will be manifest in one's heart. Therefore, what is the need for anything else? What is the need for any other literature other than the Bhagavatam and those books that follow in the Bhagavatam? There isn't. And that is exactly the literature that Prabhupada gave us. Even the Bhagavad Gita that he gave us, all the commentary is coming in the line from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose mission was to spread the truth of the Bhagavatam. You see, so the Bhagavatam itself is our way out. So, but in order to get that taste or even that understanding, a beginning, we have to come in contact with a devotee, even for a few moments. And then our process of getting out can happen. Then we have to perceive the futility of all of our material activities, which are foolish. And we regain his sanity, cast away his vanity. So the need for humility, Just think of Arjuna. Now Arjuna, of course, was the eternal friend of Krishna's. Right? But he was put into illusion so that Krishna could speak the Bhagavad Gita. And at the beginning of the Gita, he's arguing with Krishna, not from some gross material platform, but from a compassionate platform. Oh, who needs this kingdom? I see that I'm going to have to kill Dronacharya and Bhishma, my worshipable guru, my martial teacher, and Bhishma, the head of the whole clan. Forget it. I don't want to fight. I'm going to go off. Better they conquer me, like that. So he's arguing back and forth, But then when he surrenders to Krishna, he says, I'm no longer your friend. I don't want to be in a position of your friend. Now, I'm in a position of your shishya. A shishya means someone who agrees to be controlled by the words of the guru. That's what shishya means. Another word from the shishya is shastra, a weapon, and shastra. They all have that same root. If you agree to be controlled, to follow the instructions of the Shastra, then you're a proper shishya. Otherwise, Durga has her weapons, Shastra, control you, birth, death, old age, and disease. We will be controlled. That is our nature as spirit souls. So, if we actually perceive it and we cast away our vanity, then we can have the proper attitude and serve the Guru and the deity with all humility. And here we see this wonderful Bury Place. I think this is Bury Place in England in the early days. There's, I guess, Radha Landanishwar, Srila Prabhupada, and all the devotees. Jagannath's up on top there. So, and then ultimately, we regain our real identity. We've lost it. Just like Maharaj read this other verse about the gold, right? And the gold, again, the word is right in the Sanskrit. The gold regains its purity and its natural effulgence, right? It can be mixed with so many alloys, and then it doesn't look like gold anymore. But by the process of smelting, you get the gold out, and all of the impurities are gone, isn't it? So we regain our original purity. By nature, we have our sarup. This is what mukti is all about. Mukti hivanyata sarupena vivastiti. Real mukti means to give up all of these false identifications with material body and to again gain our real sarup, which is Krishnera Nityadas. You see. So that's and we can return back to Godhead. So let's continue a little with our Krishna Katashtika. That's the end of our poetic interlude. And now, the affinity to hear of the divinity, just put that in there. Affinity to hear of the divinity is also fostered by hearing the glories of transcendental sounds. Thus the third verse of the Krishna Katashtika. Give me a second. I'll get that there. So now, this is one of the most wonderful verses in the Bhagavatam, glorifying Krishna Katha. So if you join me. Tadeva ramyam ruchidanda bandavam Tadeva shashvan manaso mahotsavam Tadeva shokarnava shoshanang ninam Yaduttama shloka yashonu giyate. Those words describing the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead are attractive, relishable, and ever fresh. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind, and they dry up the ocean of misery. So this is the third of our verses that we're going to. This is the last one we'll deal with this morning. But just see the way this is experienced directly by Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, and certainly by Pariksit and Shukadev and the others. That what more are we looking for? You know, at every moment we can relish the glorification of the Lord. We just heard this morning about how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you know, chanting 300,000 names a day. Basically, he's chanting 10 million names a month for 108 months. 9 years is 108 months, so he chanted actually more than 1 billion. And obviously, you can only do that when you're completely relishing the sweetness of the holy name. And then what did he do afterward? He kept chanting, but he also spoke. In other words, he went to Calcutta, he started the Gaudiya Math at that point, you know. And we saw the same thing with Srila Prabhupada. Such a desire to preach, such a desire to speak about Krishna, you know. It's an eternal festival, a perpetual festival for the mind. So the idea is that Krishna himself manifests through these sound vibrations, especially when spoken by pure devotees. And you can experience the presence of Krishna through the sound. What more does the soul want? That is being back to Godhead, even if we are physically on this plane. You know, the great devotees, they're experiencing Krishna at every moment through glorification and service and hearing. They even lose the desire to go back to Godhead. They feel like they are back to Godhead. And in a higher sense, Prabhupada says, quote, there's nothing material, because everything is related to Krishna. Even what we call the material energy. It's material to us because we've forgotten Krishna and we're trying to separate it from him, enjoy it and master it. But when we come to our sanity and we try to use everything in Krishna's service, beginning with our own consciousness, our own mind, our own senses, then gradually everything becomes spiritual. And that's why we're discussing this verse, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, Prabodhananda says. He sees happiness everywhere. Even in places where it ordinarily would be places of difficulty or suffering. So this is a very high state of consciousness, but it's the natural state for the living entity. So it dries up all of the Shokarnava Shoshanam, the ocean of lamentation. This material world is such a, it's no place for a gentleman, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. No place for a gentleman to live. So we need to make the best use of this bad bargain. And somehow, through the art and science of bhakti, use these very senses, they connect to Krishna, beginning with the ear, beginning with the mind, ear, mind, and tongue. That's what we're talking about. Voice, hearing, chanting, remembering. Everything else follows. Again, put ourselves, as we were discussing last night, under the shelter of the internal energy of Krishna. This is what the whole point is. And the result of this will be, now I wanted to share a couple of little other verses with you, because the Bhagavatam is filled with them. And we were talking about how King Pariksit was asking, what should I hear about, what should I chant at the time of death? He's faced with that in a few days. Right? And as we heard, one should hear, chant, remember about Krishna. So here again in the second chapter, a little later in the eighth, in the second canto, in the 8th chapter, he's encouraging Shukadev to go on speaking. Shukadev is basically just begin the Bhagavatam in the beginning of the second canto. And so Pariksit is encouraging him to continue. And these verses are very famous. I'll just read them really quickly. He says, Katayashva Mahabhaga Yataham Akilatmani Krishne Niveshya Niksangam Manas Chakshe Kalevaram. So he's a very, fraught situation. He's about to give up his body, so now he's saying to Shukadev, continue. O greatly fortunate Shukadev Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam, so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Krishna, and being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. And then this is a famous verse. Shinvata Shudayanityam Grunatas Swachestitam Kalena Nati Dirgena Bhagavan Vishate Vriddhi. Again, he's talking about what we heard several times already. But the Bhagavan Krishna enters the heart from one who's ardently hearing about him. Persons who hear the Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, manifested in their hearts within a very short time. And one of the alternate meanings here is that those who are hearing with great faith regularly about Krishna, about the activities of Krishna, Swacheshtitam, and who are also chanting them, hearing and chanting about Krishna's pastimes, then quickly Krishna enters into the heart. He manifests himself. We are conscious of Krishna in the heart. And then, this is a very famous verse. Pravishta karna randraina svanam bhava sororaham dunoti shamalam Krishna salilasya yatasharat. The sound incarnation of Krishna, the Supreme Soul, namely Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee and sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, Bhava Sororuham. And thus, Krishna, in this sound incarnation, cleanses the dust of material association, of lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So it's in the next verse, I won't read it, it's talking about, this is just like coming home. You actually feel at home, and you never want to leave. That's what home means. The place where you won't be kicked out, and you feel completely comfortable, and you never want to leave there. That's what it means, going back home, back to Godhead. And even in this lifetime, here's Parikshit speaking this. So he's, of course, going to go back to Godhead, as we say, when he leaves the body. But he's already going to experience that coming home, even in sitting there, listening to Shukadeva Goswami. So I thought I'd like to share that with you. And here's another one. This verse somehow attracted my attention years ago when I first became fully conscious of it in a class with Gopal Krishna Maharaj in Toronto before the Rath Yatra there. This is about 5 years ago. And it was somehow or other, this verse so much attracted my mind that I memorized. I never did this before, just from looking at the board. Just from looking at the board that you chant from. Because you can understand it. So he says, this is a verse spoken by, and it directly relates to our hearing, chanting, remembering theme. So this is Jada Bharat speaking to Maharaj Brahugana. And he says, Tasman naro sangu susanga jata jnanasine haiva vivritna moha hadim tadiha katana shutabhyam labdas matir yat adipadamatvana. Simply by associating with exalted devotees, anyone can attain perfection of knowledge, and with the sword of knowledge can cut to pieces the illusory associations within this material world. So the idea, he's talking about asanga and susanga. This is again this strong contrast. Asanga means giving up bad association. What do you hear in bad association? Material sound vibration. That's the first thing, contaminating. But susanga is the association of devotees. Satam prasangan mamavirya sampido. This is from Kapila Dev. So what it gives birth to the Jnanasina. Now we're back again to this idea of the sword. We began with Anudyasina, the sword of remembrance. This is the sword of knowledge, Jnana Asina, with which Vivrikna Moha, you cut off all the illusion in our mind. But that's not the end. Hadim Tadiha Katana Shutabhya directly means, and hearing Shuta and Katana chanting about the Iha, the Leela, the activities of Hari. Hearing and chanting about Krishna Leela, Krishna's pastimes, which includes speaking Bhagavad Gita, creating his world, and what he did in Vrindavan and Dwarka and Mathura. So what happens? Now this is very important. Labda smritir. One regains one's remembrance. This is the way Prabhupada presents it here. Thus one can revive his dormant Krishna consciousness, and sticking to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, return home back to God, and even in this life. It says, Atipadam Advana nicely progresses on the path back home. This is by doing this. So this is exactly according to our theme. By hearing and chanting in proper association, one regains one's remembrance. Now, another meaning of this Labda Smriti, I looked into the Vishwanath Chakrabarti's take on this verse. It can mean you attain constant remembrance of Krishna. That's another thing, and that's mentioned at the end of our Krishna Katastaka here. Is that by hearing and chanting, then gradually your remembrance increases and it's eventually unbroken. So unbroken remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet. So either way you want to take it, this is the way to go back to Godhead, is by this hearing and chanting. And finally, one more little series of verses. This is a favorite. I think Himanshu. I thought I'd share this verse with him, and then I started it, and then he chanted it back to me before I even finished it. So this is one of my favorite verses. Parasparanu katadam pavanam bhagavadyasha mato ratir mitas tushtir nivrita mata atmana. This is exactly the way in which devotees should associate. So what it says here is that meeting together, parasparanu katadam, and chanting anukatanam according to the parambara. What do you hear and chant? The purifying glories of the Lord. Pavanam bhagavadyasha. So what happens? You develop attraction for each other. This is real friendship amongst devotees. I have one fellow in San Diego who began as a bhakta, and he loved to chant verses, and he immediately picked up on his beats, which you hear. It's Sanskrit. He was a drummer in a band, at one point. So what do? We get together immediately. We have all these verses that we memorize together, and we just chant them and discuss, and it's just pure nectar. That's what we meant to do, to read to each other, to discuss Prabhupada's books, ideas for preaching, and everything Krishna Katha. So this is real friendship, mito ratir, and mutual satisfaction. Tushti. Tushti means spiritual pleasure. And at the same time, you encourage each other's vairagya for material things. Nivrita, mita. Mita means mutual. Atmana, the soul becomes detached. This is what kirtan is all about. Sankirtan is the distilled essence of what he's mentioning here. You're sitting, chanting beautifully, or dancing and chanting, right? So you hear, I chant, I chant, you hear, right? Basically, it's parasparanu kataram. And so this is going on. And then this next verse has a line in here that everyone should know. I know we can learn this one today. Smarantak smarayantascha mito gaugaharam harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Easy to remember. Bibratutpadikamtanu. So he's continuing from. So in this way, remembering Krishna and reminding each other of Krishna. That's what it's all about. Smaranjak smarayantascha. And mutually, aga oga haram harim. You're reminding each other of Hari, who is aga oga haram. He takes away even vast masses of sin and sinful reaction in your heart. That's what aga oga means. So much impurity. He takes it all away. Thus, by this bhakti, this is sadhana bhakti. Getting together and glorifying. This is right. We're doing right here is sadhana bhakti. This bhaktya gives rise to bhaktya. In other words, the Vaidhi Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti gives rise to Bhava Bhakti. This is how you go to the higher levels of devotion, which it begins with hair stands on end. Then he describes some more symptoms. So can everyone understand? Let's learn this one line. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Go ahead. Bhaktya sanjataya. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Okay, very easy to understand. Sanjata, the word ja is in it, means birth. Gives birth. Surely, like samjata, totally. Generates bhakti. So bhakti generates bhakti. Another meaning is you can't get bhakti from anything else. By practicing a lot of gyan, yoga, austerity, academics, it's not going to happen. Only by bhakti can you enter into bhakti. Bhakti is self-independent. It doesn't have any kind of material cause. But this is the meaning also of the acharyas, that this bhakti gives birth to higher levels of bhakti. So I wanted to share that with you. And I think those are the verses I wanted to share. And I think that's the end of our first part. We can have a discussion or kirtan, whatever you like. All right, to sum up, at the beginning, middle, and end, the Bhagavatam exalts hearing pure vibrations, glorifying Krishna,
vibrated by pure devotees, and condemns mundane vibrations. The former leads to purity and a return to Godhead, and the latter leads to prolonged birth and death in the throes of the material energy. Cultivating the taste for Krishna Katha and distaste for Gramya Katha is the substance of sadhana bhakti. And we discussed that via Upadeshamrita and so forth. In part 2 of Krishna Katha, which is this afternoon, I believe, Sudha Goswami will quote Narada Muni on becoming a swan, not a crow, appreciating sincere glorification of the Lord, even though unsophisticated, and avoiding the pitfalls of impersonalism and mundane pious work. Any discussion, questions on these points?
Thank you. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about this point of association, especially in the last words it was mentioned how bhakti comes from bhakti.
Right.
So are we to understand that we make advancement by associating with those who have more devotion than us? And then if that's the case, then what are our own personal practices? What are they adding to our devotional progress?
Right.
How do you understand all this?
Yes. So the question is, as you've heard, the quality of the association. And so the essential first point is that we do need to come in touch with someone who is more advanced. Just to get the seed of bhakti. And so that's described in many places, right? That one's life begins, what is that? Brahmande Brahmekikon, Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Basadapai, Bhakti Lata Bija. Lord Chaitanya is in his teachings to Rupa Goswami. That the living entity is wandering, we've been wandering up and down the universes, up and down the species for so many births. But the fortunate soul, by the grace of Krishna and Guru, gets the seed of bhakti. Now, what is that seed of the creeper of devotion, right? And so, what is that seed? That seed is there in the form of the instructions that we imbibe, and in the form of faith in the instructions and in the holy name and in the process of devotional service. So that association is essential. But as we progress, we may find that that direct association is not always available. Right? That's certainly true. So we're left with associating with others more or less on the same level. Now that's really what I understand from this verse in the 11th canto, Parasparano Katanam. Devotees getting together more or less on the same level and sharing their realizations, sharing Krishna Katha, chanting Hare Krishna together. This is an essential part of devotional service, because one thing that Krishna says is that it's not just you're associating with each other, but as soon as you glorify Krishna, he's there. This wonderful verse where he's speaking to Arjuna, and he says, Krishna speaking to Narada Muni, he says, Naham tishtami vaikunte, yoginam hridayeshu va, yatra gayanti madbhakta, tatra tishtami Narada. He says, oh Narada, I'm not in Vaikuntha. I'm not in the heart of the yogis, but wherever my devotees are glorifying me, that's where I stay. So really, Krishna is part of the mix. Now, it's certainly true that whenever we have the opportunity, we should take advantage of associating with more advanced devotees so that we can learn, become more purified, and make advancement. But that doesn't mean that just associating with each other or even associating with the holy name alone, we're not going to make any advancement. The advancement can be made by following the process nicely and taking advantage of whatever good association we have. At the same time, we have to be careful not to associate with those who seem to be devotees but really aren't. There's so many Hare Krishnas vibrating now, which is all good in one sense, but you have to be careful, because if the Hare Krishna mantra is being vibrated for some material purpose, then it can have a deleterious effect on the heart of a devotee. What is that? Vaishnavo mukodginam putam hadikatamratam. Shavananaiva kartavyam sarpochistam yatapaya. This is an injunction, I think, quoted by Sanatana Goswami. But he says, from the lips or from the mouth of a Vaishnav, a non-Vaishnav, one should not hear that Harikatamritam, the nectar of Harikatha, which is by nature purifying. Putam Harikatamritam. Because it's just like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. Now, why is that analogy given? Because it still looks like milk, it may still taste like milk, but it has a poisonous effect. So it's not always clear. You're hearing a beautiful kirtan, coming out of the speakers somewhere. And I said, wow, that's nice, You're attracted by the music, and it's but then you find out, oh, that's sung by, I'm not going to name names, but wait a minute, he's not a devotee. So you have to be careful, what you hear about. But basically, associating with each other, sharing Krishna Katha, what we picked up from Srila Prabhupada's books, this is all to the good. I mean, Prabhupada understood, he founded these temples, but he was, traveling everywhere. And so the devotees relied on each other. And of course, Prabhupada's recordings, Prabhupada's books. He's always there through that. So how to associate with the great devotees, through their left vibrations, in other words, books and recordings, and at the same time associated with each other, this is how we stay strong in devotional service. Yes, Prabhu? Oh, so we're going to go to 11:30? 11:45? All right. We can always do some more kirtan or poems. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu, for such wonderful inspirations.
Hare Krishna.
I remember the second verse you talked about fostering of taste for Krishna's katha is possible by hearing that mundane katha is
Oh, I went the
source
wrong
of
way.
misery. And third verse is about glorifying the transcendental sound vibrations.
Yes.
But I think I forgot what was the first verse about.
Yes. Sankirtyamano Bhagavan Ananta Shutana Bhava Vyasanami Pungsam. He's glorifying, congregational chanting in groups about the glories of the Lord, Bhagavan, the unlimited Lord. Shruta Anubhava, one hears about the powerful activities, just like Kapila Dev says, Satan Basang Mama Virya Samvido. They have great power, to purify us, and also they're very amazing, So Shruta Vyasanam Hipungsam. Vyasanam means the pains of results of, I think well, why don't I do this? We may want to go back to this. Sorry, there's not quite enough light here. So, what he's talking about there is Krishna enters in. Pravishya Chittam. Pravishya means to enter. He enters into the consciousness of those who properly hear and chant his glories. And Vidanoti, he cleanses away. The same theme exactly as in the second chapter. Shinvatam Sukata Krishna Punyashamani Ridyantaksto Vidunoti Suritsatam. Yabadrani Vidunoti, right? So the first verse is simply stating that those who hear and chant nicely about the glories of the Lord, Krishna enters into their heart and cleanses away all these difficulties. The vyasanam is the pains, the suffering, sinful reactions. And it's complete. And he gives these two analogies, just like the sun coming up. There's no more darkness. The sun is up. And if there maybe is a cloud cover, okay, it's like a powerful wind. So it's such a powerful force if done properly. That's why there's no prerequisite. Doesn't matter how sinful you are. The hunter, with so many other examples in our literature of the purification. So this is the only reason why we can feel confident in taking part in the process. If we had to go off to the Himalayas and meditate, forget it, right? If we had to perform, sacrifices, involving so many Brahmins and everything, we'd never be able to do it. Even if we had to chant the mantras perfectly, like they do in these Vedic sacrifices, what hope do we have? But because it's the soul and the supreme soul, and really the body you're in is irrelevant as long as you have an ear, a voice, and a mind. You can practice bhakti if you're sane at least. Then these other considerations aren't there. And so that's why this is such a powerful verse. It completely cleanses it away. And as you say, the next verse said, but watch out, other words. In other words, he's saying, these are the words, these are the sounds you need. The others are false and harmful. And there's one verse I didn't share with you, but this one really struck me. Recently I came across it. And I think it's in the description of the kingdom of God in the 3rd canto. And then the question is, well, who gets to go there? You know, who goes and who doesn't go. So this one is about who doesn't go to Godhead, back to Godhead. Yang na vajant agabado vachanana vadat chinvandiye anya vishaya kukata matigni yastu shuta hatabaga nibarata saras tang tang chapanta shadaneshu tamakso hanta. Very graphic description here. We've heard some wonderful descriptions of the glories of Krishna Katha. Now here's this very graphic descriptions of the dangers of Gramya Katha. So he says, they do not go. Yang na vrajanti. Vrajanti means to go. Agabida. Now Agabida is a name for Krishna. It means he who destroys all sin. Now I also, the Sanskrit language is so rich. Aga doesn't just mean sin. It also means the suffering that comes from sin. So Krishna destroys all the sin and all the suffering. And yet, there's so many other subjects we're hearing. So he said, this is what happened. Rachananuvada. So Rachananuvada means talks of or creation of words that's not about Agabida, it's not about Krishna. Shrinvanti, they hear such words. Ye anya vishaya. Anya vishaya means other subject matters, of which there are millions. We just heard that. There's no question of that. Kukata, this is called Kukata, not Krishna Katha. It means bad talks, bad sounds. And what's the result? Matigni, destroys your intelligence, destroys your mind. So then what's the result? Yastu Shuddha, those who hear this, Hatabagai, all their good fortune is taken away, these persons. Remember, Atasaras, the essence of life, which is the search for God, you become uninterested. This is called Atasaras, the essence is no longer interesting. Tang Tang Chapanti, these different topics, they throw you down. Chapanji, Ashadaneshu, we have no shelter. Tamaksu, into darkness and ignorance of hell. So this is a very graphic description. And it's all based on the sound vibration. That's where your intelligence begins, that's where your education begins, that's where your thoughts begin. When you think of anything, it all began with a description. It was just like this building. I don't know, it was always a church. So someone conceived right, it was a church before? Obviously. So someone had the idea. How do you have the idea? Because it comes in words. Someone describes it to you, hear about it, you read about it. Some church that was built in Europe or whatever. It all begins with the sound, even on the material level. Krishna says in 11th canto, I create this world by sound vibration. Om, the first syllable. It's all coming through it. So by sound, our conditioning is strengthened, and by sound, our conditioning can be ended. So that was what the first verse is about, setting it all up. And it's wonderful. It begins with Sankirtan. Also, I wanted to share with you, the very last verse. This is practically the last instructions of Sutta. The very last verse of the Bhagavatam talks about Nam Sankirtan. Did you know that? Nama Sankirtanasya yasya sarva papa pranashanam. What is it? Pranashanam pranamo dukkha shamanas tang namame harim param. You should always look for those last instructions, just like, Sarva Dharma Parityaya. So he's saying here, the last verse about Nam Sankirtan. I offer my obeisance unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, congregational chanting of whose names destroys all sin, and offering obeisances unto whom destroys all difficulty or misery or suffering. Very nice to learn that last verse. Someone else had a question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You brought up the NOI verse talking about Niyamagraha and all those other bad things. So I was thinking specifically of Niyamagraha. I feel that sometimes I am following rules and regulations that I'm not at that level, but I'm following them anyway because it's socially acceptable.
Uh-huh.
And it hinders my faith, I guess. But I mean, even worse than me, I've seen peers who they can't deal with even artificially following that. They'll just totally be out of the picture. They don't want to have anything to do with it because they're feeling like they're forced to follow those things. So I mean, I don't know. It's a hard situation.
Well, it always happens. I don't want to get into politics, the local rules and regulations, but let's put it this way. I remember when I first joined ISKCON in 1973 in March at Brooklyn Temple. I mean, it was a new life, for me. I had lived alone. I had my little apartment and everything. Now I was in an ashram, and in those days, this may sound far out, we didn't even have our own clothes. There's like a big merge, and if you could find a nice dhoti or a t-shirt without enough holes in it or whatever, there weren't that many kerchiefs. They were rare. And okay, Hare Krishna, So. But the tenor of the place, the kind of the spirit, there was so much kirtan, there was so many things going on that you kind of were able to tolerate. So, yeah, and I also adopted this principle because I could see that everything was going on, by the authorities. And where did the authorities get their authority? Well, they got it from Prabhupada. Prabhupada was always present. They were always playing a tape and reading his books, and he even came there 2 weeks after I joined, which is very rare. I didn't know that at the time. But, he arrived and visited New York Temple. I was very fortunate. So there were two things going on. One is for our own elevation, for our own purification, we need to follow certain basic things. I assume you're not talking about getting up early and chanting your rounds and attending Mangalarti. That's, you may be talking about some other thing. But, so those things are basic. I don't think anyone would argue. You may or may not be able to do that regularly. Maybe you can't. But those are essential things in order to advance. But at the same time, there's also the mission, or the idea of maintaining the facility, if you want to say. This is a rare, wonderful, miraculous outpost of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's right here in the middle of Chicago. Who would ever have thought, imagined, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So sometimes it's necessary to do things that we think, well, this is impeding my hearing and chanting and, whatever. But it's important to keep everything going. And especially we find, like when as you get, years go by and you become a senior devotee by no effort of your own, that you're an example, I mean, I may not feel like, okay, I got to do this or I got to do that, but what's going to happen if everyone else feels that way, And then the authority quickly, gets damaged. So I would say that, that if there's something like that, then maybe it's worthwhile talking to the authorities how we can maybe, mitigate it or do something different. But at the same time, it's very important to maintain the atmosphere of surrender and unity in a community like this. And so, oftentimes it's necessary, just bite the bullet and do something, and realize that at a certain point, in your devotional career, you'll have more time, to do the things you want to do. Or there's always like pilgrimages coming up, festivals coming up, where like I know devotees that go to Mayapur and they say, oh, it's so nice, I was able to chant 64 rounds without even trying, because that's all we're doing all day, going on pilgrimage and like that. And it's a time when you can really get into things that you couldn't the rest of the time. So I would say that it's a balance. One has to apply one's intelligence in all things about devotional service, and especially someone living in the temple, and we need to support the authority, and provided the authority is bona fide, and that this in itself is pleasing to Prabhupada, pleasing to Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. So I'm sympathetic, to that, but one should do it with great prudence, in order to not cause too much disturbance. Okay, anyone else? Do we have anything from the ladies' side? Come, Premananda, you have something. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you again.
So nice to have you back. I don't know if there is an answer to this, but anyway, living in this household situation and in this material world, there are, that you don't want to get too much into this Gramya Katha or mundane conversations, and in your heart of hearts, all you want to hear is Krishna Katha. And
Uh-huh.
that's not what really happens. You always, you tend to hear other things. And there is no place to run away. I mean, of course, we can say that maybe there is a place, there is a temple or some festival is happening, then you just go there and then those days you hear. But
Uh-huh.
and then you feel within your own heart of hearts that I wish I don't have to hear all these things, and I wish I could just simply absorb myself. But there's only so much you can do because you cannot completely become antisocial, or there is no such. I mean, sometimes you wish that it is a different situation where you don't have to deal with any of those things. I mean, you cannot completely avoid this. And so we know that the lifetime of such a person is just being, Prabhupada says, like it is less than the sand going through the hourglass, and it's going towards death, and it's not life, it's not eternal life that we are going to. And so, there is nothing real, I mean, so much you can do practically. You cannot completely avoid all those situations, knowing fully well that
Yeah.
You are not 100% absorbed in Krishna Katha all the time.
Yes.
What to do? I mean, it's like
Whatever you do, you keep this desire. When you finally, if you feel that okay, it's all right, nothing I can do, because this anxiety that you don't want to hear, this is a good sign, and eventually Krishna will give you opportunity to just hear. We're all like playing out the string, so to speak, in our lives, and we make certain decisions in our lives, and then that takes us down a certain path, a household path, and then yes, you're going to be more prone to that, inevitably. But still, there are decisions to be made. There's always some wiggle room, Am I going to, do I really have to surrender to this? Or can I be a force for pure kata, This is why I always like the shlokas. The shlokas are like, they're defenses against that. They're a way that keep your mind enlivened, Like this morning, I was remembering one set of verses from a book put together by Dasharath Sutta Prabhu. And I can make this available to you. It's just, it's called the Yugala Parihara Stotram. And it's a prayer to Radha and Krishna. It's almost like an expanded Hare Krishna mantra. And everyone says, He Sandaya Nadana Rupa Gadiman Madhurya Leelanata. He Ascharya Vishesha Veshadadahe Vangshi Vibhusha Vibho. He Brindata Vibhuvilasani Satkeli Kalakamude. He Radhe Chadane Videhi Shadanam. He Krishna Trishnam Hara. Now it is said that there's 8 of these verses that Lord Chaitanya was chanting them on his way in South India. This is how did this come to be written? There's no author given. But it came out of Lord Chaitanya's mouth. Whether he wrote it or not, or whether he found it somewhere else and he was chanting it, it was written down by a pilgrim as he was hearing it from Lord Chaitanya. And this is how it's come down. Anyway, what does it say? It says, hey. Hey means, oh, it's just like Hare Krishna. It's a direct address. Is it? So, hey Radhe Chadane Videhi Shadanam, Hey Krishna Trishnam Hara. So that's the last line. It's the theme, the chorus line. Hey Soundai Nadana Rupa Gadiman. Oh Lord Krishna, you who is your Rupa is so glorious and most beautiful. Soundaya Nadana Rupa Gadiman. Madhurya Leela Anata. You have this beautiful, sweet, conjugal Leela in which you're always dancing. Madhurya Leela Anata. Ascharya Vishesha Vesha Dadahe. And your dress is so many wonderful details. This is what we have to get into, the details. These words that we hear, there's so much fraught, they're so full. Vishesha, Ascharya, wonderfully detailed dress and ornaments and flowers and all of the perfect things that we know. Vishesha Vesha Dadahe, Hey Vangshi Bhusha Prabhu. Oh Lord, you who are decorated with that beautiful flute. So these 2 lines are about Krishna. Then he addresses Radha. Hey Brindata Vibhu Vilasani. You who love to play in the forests of Vrindavan. Vrindavu Vilasani Vasatkeli Kalakamudi. You who's like the moon, whose moonshine is all the many arts of love that you know in relation to Krishna. Like that. And then the last line is a prayer. Hey Radhe Chadane Videhi Shadanam. Oh Srimati Radharani, please give me shelter of your lotus feet. Hey Krishna Trishnam Hara. Oh Krishna, please take away this great thirst. That is two ways of understanding that last part. Oh Krishna, please remove any vestiges of material Trishna that I have, thirst. Or Krishna, please appeal to Radharani so that I can get shelter of her lotus feet and relieve this thirst. So it's kind of maybe a little advanced, whatever. But it's just filled like that with descriptions of Krishna, you know. So there's so many verses. I can show you how to, learn them. We heard this morning that part of the remembrance, right? Cheering, chanting, remembering is memorizing. It's there right there by the purport. Prabhupada quotes from Bhaktisiddhanta. So all of these things that we focus on, and that we remember, these act as antidotes, if you will, to the Grumya Katha. So take shelter of that as much as possible, and keep praying. Krishna will answer. Keep praying for relief from being forced to associate with materialists, and one day Krishna will completely satisfy your desire. No doubt about it. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu. Subal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dravida Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Haribol.
I was just thinking on the point that you brought on that beautiful verse about association with devotees. And
Can we turn the lights on now? I think we can have the lights on.
the association and how that association completely nourish not only the relationship of friendship, but also your Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
And you pointed out that one have to be careful to discriminate when you associate, that it may be in the garb of a devotee, but it's not a devotee necessarily. So those are very clear. There's certain, there's Mayavadis who like to chant Hare Krishna and have very attractive, capacities.
Mm-hmm.
But you know that they're not devotees, so you know that they're. But then I was thinking in terms of it is very nourishing when you have devotees who have similar goals that you have.
Right.
In terms, say for example, if you want to advance in your practices, if you're trying to be a serious sadhaka, and you associate with those who are looking to upgrade their sadhana practices, then it's very enlivening. Also, when you have devotees who are quite accomplished, then it's very nourishing. But then, there's situations that you may be associating with devotees that not necessarily are, open to sadhana, just like we were discussing this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking how, this attraction for chanting, for kirtan, but no attraction for Krishna Katha. So then, but Sukadev Goswami says, Shrava eva hi kevalam. If we don't have, Vasudeva Katha Ruchi, then it's a waste of. So, two things. Association, discriminating one association, especially when, we come together
Right.
for Sankirtan. And that it could be an uncomfortable situation. Who am I to point out? And then the other one is also that attraction that one sees, sometimes about, in our community of devotees is something that one should look forward to. One should discriminate, not to, have some discrimination.
Yes. Yeah. It's not cut and dried. Each situation is different. One of the things on the positive side is that we can try to become, influences. We're not just being moved around, but we can also become an influence in any community, especially a community of devotees where we have some respect or we're known, and because the thing is, nothing is set in stone. Just like we can experience in our own lives, Krishna consciousness means a transformation. You undergo a transformation. So that's also true, you know, for everyone else. So a certain person may say, oh, I like kirtan, but, you know, forget it. I'm not going to go to the Bhagavatam class, you know. But that person may be enlivened if you pick out a part of the Bhagavatam that you're enlivened about, if they're your friend, you know what I mean? And so you're speaking to them and you're reading to them, and suddenly they're enlivened by something in the Bhagavatam or something in the Nectar of Devotion or anywhere in Prabhupada's books. And so they say, suddenly realize, well, actually, I mean, yeah, I've fallen asleep in so many Bhagavatam classes, but that was really fascinating, Prabhu, you know? is that really in the Bhagavatam? Yeah, look, see, you know? And so the person then may get a taste. You know what I mean? So we can also be good influences and trying to broaden people's scope of interest in Krishna Katha. But you're right that we want that at a certain point we want to discriminate. You know, if it's not possible for us to be an influence, then we may want to withdraw from that association or not participate as much. But one thing you said I'm not so sure about is that, because, you know, I just spent some time in Alachua, and there's a lot of devotees who like to chant there. And I'm always watching, you know, because I always go to the morning program. You'll always see me, you know. And gradually, the age is advancing. The average age of the person attending Mangalarti is now the 50s, you know. You don't see so much of the young people, you know, spontaneously attracted. There were a few. It's not so cut and dried. But, well, what's going to happen? You know, I mean, these are old-timers who were trained in Prabhupada's days in the 70s, you know. And are we going to continue this Mangalarti? This is Prabhupada's program. So that's a struggle. But these devotees, they were, you know, they grew up in devotee families. They're attracted to kirtan. This is all to the good. It's not at all the same platform of somebody who's chanting Krishna who doesn't believe at all in Krishna. These are devotees, you know. But they rebel. They're not into the ashram life, you know, the control. So fine, but there's their influx, you know. There's a possibility that this can be changed, because the thing is, ultimately there's no two ways about it. In other words, what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was saying there, that we read, that Maharaj read from the Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, is true. In other words, Krishna Katha, one has to be willing to hear about the glories of Krishna. One has to be willing to hear about one's own failings in devotional service so that you can recognize them and improve, right? I was speaking last night, was it last night? Things are merging together. About the sadhu who, with his cutting words, who cut off the attachments in one's heart, you know. So, and what was it that, yes, so Prabhupada was speaking. I forget how it went. But the you know, he was speaking very strongly to someone, and other devotees were hearing it as pure nectar. The person who is, you know, whose the attachments are being cut may not feel it so pleasant, you know. But that's surrender. That's what it means. That, yeah, I'm willing to have my anartas exposed, so that I can cleanse them away. Otherwise, you're okay, I'm okay, everything is fine. Then you don't make so much advancement, you know. So the hearing the words of the Shastra is very important. There's so much part of the Shastra, as we hear. Just you know, this is so nectarian, but there's still sharp words here. Whole chapters, whole sections. You know, description of hellish punishments. The fifth canto, the Forest of Enjoyment, Puranjan story. You know, it's not like hearing Braj Leela. You know, it's pretty heavy stuff, but it tacks to the, you know, it's necessary medicine. You know, so to cultivate a desire for that and ability to do that, we have to be forces to do that. Present it in such a way that people will be willing to, you know, take it. But at the same time, to avoid those who are out and out atheists and out Mayavadis, we don't want to, they're beyond the pale. You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's our signal. I think that ends our program today. And I think we have a few minutes until Kirtan. You have another question? Go ahead. Where's that mic? Okay.
You mentioned that nowadays there is so much opportunity for Gramya Katha because of there is so much media, internet, and so on. And my experience is that it usually starts in a more in a very subtle ways, that oh, maybe I want to do something for preaching or something, and then the train starts, and then it goes, let's say Facebook or something. uh, it starts with a good intention, but then because Maya is so strong, it usually goes into Gramya Katha. And then how can we protect ourselves?
This is the need for seasoned devotees who can see that pitfall, because that is a pitfall. There's no question. Over the years, I don't need to the history of ISKCON is fraught with that. Is where, okay, we got to save the BBT, because at one point book distribution became decreased. Well, what happened was so many temples, they ordered books, right? Okay, you owe so many books, you have a warehouse full of books, but then they couldn't distribute the books. Suddenly there's not so many devotees distributing, or something happened in the temple. It's so delicate, that suddenly the mood for distribution, which is very important but also delicate, wasn't there. So now they got all these books, and so they can't sell them, or they sell them but they can't afford to pay the BBT because we need that money to keep the temple going. Our other sources of income are. So these things happen. I'm just giving you an example of how it can happen. So now, but the BBT still needs money. Okay, so we can't distribute books anymore because we'll distribute records. But they're much cheaper to make, and the overhead isn't there. Okay, so now all those book distributors are going out distributing records. There are records about Krishna. Don't get me wrong. It's not just Makarmi records. They made some records about Krishna. I saw this. But now it's not the same thing. It's not Prabhupada's words. These books are going out. The records are going out. And eventually he says, well, to get even more income, we'll just go out with stickers. Our devotees are so, good at it that they can collect so much money at stickers. And sure enough, they did. But by now, they're not even able, there's nothing about Krishna. It's not even a record about Krishna. It's just saving the BBT. And so many of those devotees, they became unenlivened because it's just all stickers, stickers, stickers. And so this happened. It started with good intention to save the BBT, but it ended up blowing out many devotees who eventually said, well, so-and-so happened, this happened, now I'm just going to go out and make stickers and keep the money for myself. And you have devotees going out today, even from the 80s, who are just supporting themselves by doing stickers, who were once book distributors. So this is an illustration of something you're talking about, that it's easy to do that, and we have to, watch out. We have to be vigilant that what we're doing is not turning into something mundane. Even welfare work, we can be, we're feeding so many people. But after some time, how is it being offered? How is it being prepared? Do people know it's Krishna Prasadam? Or are we just, and why, if we're just feeding people, why can't we help, if there's a hurricane, we can help house people too. We got tents, Before you know it, it's mundane welfare work. So all of that is something that, this is, Maya's sneaky way of getting in the back door, It's not so obvious as, drugs or sex or anything. That's the devotees of, Hare Krishna. But wait a minute, this back door, and before you know it, the purity of the mission. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very strict upon that. He's always cutting. This is why he was so controversial, giving it as it is. And those who are willing to take that, it's extremely cleansing and powerful. When someone who can speak like that and really get to the root of your an artist. As I was quoting last night, Krishna says to Uddhava, 11th canto, Tatsma duk sangam utsraja. Tatsma duk sangam utsraja satsu sajjeta buddhiman. Santa evasta chintanti manovyasagam bhuktibi. Therefore, if one wants to advance, one is intelligent, buddhiman, one will throw away bad association with great force, and search out satsu, the saints. Why? Because the saints, santa evasta chintanti, Manovyasanga Muktabi. With their strong words, the saints, the real devotees, can cut off the powerful attachments in one's mind. Manovyasangam. You know, we all have to recognize that the mind is very deep. So many births we've been cultivating these material desires, and now we're feeling okay. I've given up this, but there's still so much in there that needs to be addressed. So you're right that it often starts seemingly innocently, but it can end up taking the mind away, and then the perfect symptom of that disease is one no longer has time to channel all one's rounds. Oh, I don't have time to come to the morning program anymore. I'm so busy with all of these things I have to do. Very dangerous situation. So you're right. That has to nip it in the bud, and keep one's sadhana very strong, so you can easily see the contrast between these tendencies. Okay, time for kirtan, and then at 12:15 we'll have the Pushpanjali for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And we will continue in the afternoon session. What is it?
Seriously, don't even talk to me about that. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
For those of you not familiar, we're going to offer flowers 3 times. So what's in your hand, 1/3 at a time, please, because otherwise you're going to run out of flowers. And you're going to stand very close, and we're going to offer the flowers at the feet, not at the face, of Bhaktisiddhanta. Come real close. Men, come close. And there's flowers for the men. And so wait till the very end, and then Dravida Prabhu will tell you the offer of the flowers will be Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki. Then you offer flowers, and then pay obeisances, and then do it 2 more times. But he's going to have some mantras at the beginning. I hope you got the picture.
I have a picture, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll find out. All right, word by word. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagvajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dahitaya Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dahine Prabhave Namaha Madhuyojvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaudakishoraya Sakshat Vairagyamurtaye Vipralambha Rasambodhe Padambujaya Te Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Vibhava Bhumestvam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Trishe Namaha Panchatatpatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratao Pangor Mama Manda Matirgati Matsavasva Padam Bhojao Radha Madana Mohanao Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Shrimad Ratnagara Singhasanasthao Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prestali bhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vanchivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Svanaya Gopi Gopinatha Srihestunaha Taptana Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So now we're going to repeat Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's pranam mantras, and after each one I'll say Jai Shri Bhaktisiddhanta and offer 1/3 of your flowers, offer obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dahitaya Kripabdehe Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dahine Prabhave Namaha. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki. Madhuyojala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Namaste, Gauravani, Shrimurtaye, Dinatarine, Rupanuga, Viruddha, Apasiddhanta, Dvantaharine. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai. Someone. Check it out.
Here's two. Are we singing some Star prayers? Samsaradava Nalalita Loka Shanaya Karunya Gunagana Tvam Samsaradava Nalalita Loka Shanaya Karunya Saradava Nalalita Loka Shanaya Karunya Ganagana Tvam Saradava Nalalita Loka Pratasakayana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Pratasakayana Gunana
Bhaktasya Kayana Gurunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vadit Ramayjan Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vadit Ramayjan Manasura Sena Romanchakam Sutarangam Bajo Mande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanaya Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratan Mandira Marjanaya Yuktasya Bhaktam Chaninyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Yuktasya Bhaktam Chaninyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Arturvidha Shri Magava Prasada Sadhana Tritan Hari Bhakta Sangan Kritvaiva Chete Majata Sadeva Mande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhava Yona Para Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Nam Shri Radhika Madhava Yona Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Pratekshana Swadana Lolumpasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Pratekshana Swadana Lolumpasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Nikunjayo no rati kele sitai Yaya libe yun terapekshaniya Nikunjayo no rati kele sitai Yaya libe yun terapekshaniya Tata Sridhaksharati Balamasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Tata Sridhaksharati Balamasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Sakshadarite Samasta Shastrai Ukta Satamam Yatareva Shaimi Sakshadarite Samasta Shastrai Ukta Satamam Yatareva Shaimi Kintu Baboyam Priyareva Satya Mande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Kintu Baboyam Priyareva Satya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Yasa Prasada Bhagava Prasada Yasa Prasada Nagati Kutombi Yasa Prasada Bhagava Prasada Yasa Prasada Nagati Kutombi Ayam Tuman Tataya Shastri Sadam Mande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Dayam Tuman Tataya Shastri Sadam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Samsarada Vanalida Loka Chanaya Karunya Gana Ganatva Pratasakayana Gunanamasa Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Satarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine. Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol. Haribol, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh! Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Whoa! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Harimo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Harimo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Harimo, Harimo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Harimo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Go Premanande, Hari Bo. Jai Vidabha Paramahansa Bhadrikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhadrikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem Chika Hoji Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktabinda ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Ganga Mahi ki jai, Shamuna Mahi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada's Glorious Disappearance Day Festival ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Balara lara handayine. Hiranyakashipo vaksha. Ashila tanka nakara ye. Ito nisringa parato nisringo. Yato yato yamitato nisringa. Bahir nisringo rindai nisringo. Nrsimhanading sharanang prapaje. Tapakara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringa. Talita hiranyakashipu darum bringa. Keshavamrita narahari rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare, Jai Jagadisha Hare. Avakara Kamala. Jaya Nrsimhadev, 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 Jaya Nrsimhadev. Shringa Bhagavan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.